Because now the Angry Birds are really pissed. I'm Andre Minko, the founder of Trademark Factory, and in this video I'm going to share my thoughts about yet another trademarking screw-up. This time around, it's Angry Birds, the game, suing the Angry Birds chicken restaurant. Alright, let me start by reading from the article, and you'll find the link in the description below. Rovio sues California chicken restaurant over Angry Birds trademark. Finnish developer Rovio is suing a California restaurant for violation of its Angry Birds trademark. The lawsuit, filed in the Central District Court of California last week, accuses Angry Birds with a Z, Nashville Hot Chicken, of trademark dilution, both with its name and its logo, which appears very similar to the logo for Angry Birds, the mobile game. Rovio sent a cease and desist to the restaurant owners in February and says has communicated with them since, but has been unable to resolve the issue. Now, they interviewed an IP attorney who noted in comments to gamesindustry.biz that Rovio's lawsuit has strong legal grounds to succeed, mostly due to the logo font being so similar to that of the mobile game. Without that similarity, it would be more difficult to prove that a casual passerby would think the lunch and dinner stop was affiliated with Angry Birds, the game. Now, let's dissect what the lawyer has said, because it actually makes sense. So a couple of things here. One, this casual passerby. It's not an accident. It's not some, code language that the lawyer used. Well, although it kind of is. It's the legal standard that is usually used to evaluate the likelihood of confusion. Whether the two brands, when presented to a casual passerby, would create or have a likelihood of creating that confusion. So here's the idea behind it. When you're claiming that somebody is infringing on your brand, you have to prove that there's likelihood of confusion between the two brands. And it's not about you putting two trademarks side by side and trying to count the number of differences or the number of similarities. It's about trying to imagine a fictional person. They call them a casual passerby, someone with imperfect recollection of brand number one, and thinking, would that person, when presented with the brand number two, would they kind of think that the two brands come from the same source, or have some sort of an affiliation, or have some other sort of a relationship between the two? And if the answer to that question is yes, then they say, yeah, looks like there's likelihood of confusion. And if you would immediately tell that no, that casual passerby would not be led into thinking that brand number two comes from the same source or is endorsed by brand number one, then there's no likelihood of confusion. That's the standard. So that's what the lawyer is referring here to. Now, the other thing he's talking about is, well, isn't it kind of totally different? The mobile game and the eatery, the restaurant. And in typical situation, yes, you would usually be able to get away with it. But I keep coming back to the same idea. It's not only about dissimilarity of goods and services, it's also about intent. If you are trying to make it unmistakable that you are trying to take a free ride on somebody else's brand, even if your products and services are totally different, that intention of creating that mental link between your place and somebody else's famous brand, that can put you in a hot water. That's exactly what's happening here. So obviously, it's not a coincidence why they called their restaurant that way. And I mean, look, yeah, they could have said well, Birdz, we're a chicken restaurant. Angry, well, we serve hot sauces. We have an excuse. But really, the intention is what? The intention is to take a free ride on the immense popularity of the game. And they took it one step further than they should have taken it in order to be able to get away. They used a font that was very similar to the games. And that is proof that this is not a coincidence, that the choice of name is not a coincidence, the choice of font is not a coincidence, their marketing efforts is not a coincidence, and now they're going to have to pay for that. So let me keep reading. So he says, the fact that they use the same font as the game is actually a huge problem for them. Courts consider this to be a factor in increasing confusion. Exactly what I said. It also shows willfulness in the intent to confuse. They would have been wise to use an entirely different font. Now the question is, what if they change their font now? Is it too late? And I would say that probably yes, because again, the intent, you look at the intent when they adopted the brand. And at the time they adopted the brand, the intent was unmistakable: to create confusion with a popular game, to take a free ride on their popularity. I keep saying the same thing. So even if they say, oh, we didn't realize, we didn't really have good advice from our legal team, we thought we'd be able to get away with it because restaurants are not related to games. So you say it's the font that's the problem. Well, we're going to change the font. I don't think they'd be able to get away with that unless they come up with some sort of a settlement that makes it possible for the restaurant to keep going under that name. Also, the fact that Angry Birdz is licensed out on every product imaginable, from plush toys to lunch boxes to film, increases the chance of consumer confusion. It's not entirely unlikely that, given how famous and successful the game is and how prolific its licensing is, they would have licensed their brand to a restaurant in Los Angeles. Now, this goes to the point of it also matters how often does the main brand license itself to products unrelated to the main product. So in this case, the game. If all they did was just the game, if they did absolutely nothing else, it was just a game, and the only way you could come into contact with the brand was to play the game, then anyone who would start a competing venture, or not a competing venture, a venture in a completely different industry but using the same brand, they would have an argument to say, look, they're just a game. Yeah, it may be a popular game, but like, who would ever confuse us with them, right? And this totally changes when Angry Birdz is licensed for toys, for clothing, for all sorts of different things. It became a product in and of itself that's not really related to the game anymore. It's just characters, it's the brand, it's the IP that generates all this money for Rovio. So the argument here is, well, if they could license the brand for t-shirts, why couldn't they have licensed the brand for to a restaurant? They could have easily done that, and if it's easy to imagine the game licensing their brand out to a restaurant, that adds to that idea that the casual passerby may be confused into believing that this particular restaurant was the one licensed by the game. So here's what Rovio seeks. They seek a prohibition against the hot chicken restaurant from using the name or logo in the future, as well as unspecified damages. Now, what this means is that they look for two things. One, they want the court to say, restaurant, stop doing this. You gotta rebrand, you gotta change your signage, you gotta change your marketing, you got to do everything. You gotta probably get rid of the domain name, the social media, because they're not just going after the logo, they're going after the name. So they're hoping that the court will agree that the restaurant is trying to take a free ride on their reputation and issue an order that would prohibit the restaurant from using that name or logo ever again. And the second thing they're going after is what's called unspecified damages. It means that they're going to say in court, there is, we've suffered a lot, there's trademark infringement case, there's statutory damages, possibly there's also all this bad thing happening. We want you, dear court, to figure out how can we punish this restaurant so that it teaches them a lesson and also teaches the lesson to everyone else who'd be stupid enough to ever think of stealing our brand. So that's the case. We're going to see where this goes. It could be interesting. It could be interesting in the sense that, is the restaurant going to fight it? And if yes, how far are they going to go? And if they're going to settle, are they just going to get a license from the game, which is a likely outcome? Or are they going to agree to something else? We'll see. And subscribe to this channel if you want to find out what the outcome is. I don't know when it comes, if it comes, but if there is an outcome that we are aware of, we'll post about it in this channel. And other than that, we just post new video about trademarks and branding every single day. So if you like this one, you're going to like a lot more. And until then, I'll see you in the next video. Like an angry bird!